Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, hope you're having an amazing day. It's here. We finally have a benchmark of the RTX 4090, which is one of the highest end SKUs in Nvidia's Lovelace lineup. Yes, there is almost certainly going to be the RTX 4090 Ti, but this is not going to launch until next year. And we're going to get right into the performance of this thing after this message from the video's sponsor.
If you're running a copy of Windows 10 which isn't activated, of course, not only do you have to worry about the missing customization options, but there's also that annoying Windows desktop watermark reminding you to activate. Today's video is sponsored by WhoKeys.com, and they have an excellent price on Windows 10 Professional as well as Home keys. Yeah, and they also of course sell games. I've bought a few Windows 10 keys with my own personal account to test everything was legit and worked in preparation for this sponsored video. You can pick up one of their keys for 25% off using the coupon code RGT in the checkout. There's links to their website in the video description. Also, if you're building a few systems, there's bundles available too. Again, you can check out WhoKeys.com and use the coupon code RGT for 25% off the listed Windows 10 key prices.
So, let's just say it immediately. Over 19,000 points in Time Spy Extreme. To put this into some level of context, an RTX 3090 Ti scores just over 11,000 points, and an RTX 3090 scores somewhere in the neighbourhood of 10,000, 10,500. Of course, this will vary based upon a plethora of different things, like whether you've got a Founds Edition card, whether you've got like a heavily overclocked AIB model, and so on and so on. But roughly speaking, we're looking at almost a 70% increase over an RTX 3090 Ti, which is, quite frankly, very, very impressive indeed. Now, I have to level with you guys on something here. I actually have had a score for some time now for the RTX 4090, but I was sworn to secrecy. And 19,000 isn't actually quite the score. It's actually significantly higher, at least the result that I received. But we're going to get more into this in just a second, because I want to discuss overclocking and clock frequency, because things start to get quite interesting. I want to discuss actually what Copy7 Kimmy has also said on Twitter. He went on a tweet rampage, and he said it's very simple for Ada to reach 3 GHz or above, so the RTX 4090 has a lower frequency. Now, to my personal understanding with the RTX 4090, the boost frequency is somewhere in the neighbourhood of around 2500 MHz. However, I have heard that some AIBs are looking to go significantly higher than that, somewhere in the neighbourhood of around 2650 to 2700 MHz. I'm going to give the obvious caveat though, and that is that boost clocks for GPUs are just, well, difficult to pin down, because obviously rated clocks are not the same thing as what they can actually reach in games. I'm sure you guys know the story by now. I'm not going to go into the whole spiel of, what Nvidia says versus what actually you see, and AMD's hardware is just the same. So it's quite difficult to know whether these are the rated speeds that are going to be advertised, or whether this is actually what's currently being achieved in games right now from like test and engineering samples. To repeat something I've also mentioned a couple of times, I've been told that the RTX 4090s that are being tested can go up to 120% power level. The thing is, I do not know whether this is going to be the same case for cards that we end up getting, because obviously the BIOSes could be locked down for whatever reason, maybe because of heat concerns, or they don't want to basically infringe on what could be an RTX 4090 Ti. Therefore, we may not get the same speeds, but a couple of people have told me that the 40 and 90 can reach over 3 GHz. However, the lower end SKUs, such as the 4070 and other cards, as Copy7 is implying here, well, those things just overclock really well, and they basically crank themselves to the stratosphere in terms of performance. I'm going to be very interested, to be honest, to see how all of this ends up. Now, it is only one benchmark, and frustratingly, the only benchmark I've been given is Time Spy Extreme. However, generally speaking, I have been told that we're looking at about 2 times increase over the 3090. The ray tracing results, though, I am actually told with the 4090 is just absolutely is just ridiculous. What I can tell you is that I have been told that Nvidia's kind of the best way of describing these cards essentially is that pretty much any game, with a few exceptions, and obviously ray tracing is going to be removed from this statement, can basically be run at 120 frames per second at 4K. And I don't really think that that's a very difficult claim for many of you to believe. Like, look at what the 3090 or the 6900 XT is capable of. The real, what the real question is, what these cards can actually do, to be honest, with DLSS and ray tracing and all of that stuff. These cards are going to be really fast. This isn't to say that they're going to be like a boundless source of energy, of course. They will have limits, especially if you start enabling all the ray tracing features and stuff. But these cards are really fast. And from Nvidia, we're going to move on to perhaps another very exciting benchmark, actually. And this concerns the 13600K. These, of course, will form the mid-range of Intel's Raptor Lake series of processors. And I have to say that Raptor Lake actually is going to be putting, at least in my personal opinion, based upon what we're seeing here, a crap ton of pressure on, basically AMD's entire lineup. Because basically the 13600K has 6 performance cores and 8 energy efficient cores. So the best way to look at this is essentially 14 cores total with 20 threads. Now this is quite an increase over the 12600K, which is 10 cores, 16 threads. Enthusiastic Citizen, I'll leave a link of course to this in the video description, actually has managed to obtain a pre-production sample of the 13600K. Now unfortunately there's not a wide number of benchmarks, and that's putting it mildly, and there are some hinky results here which I'll discuss further in just a second, but in terms of multi-thread anyway, we are looking at a benchmark which absolutely just wrecks the 12600K, and quite curiously even puts pressure on the 12700. Actually, Sebastian, who owns a 12700, I'll link his Twitter account in the video description as well, has kindly provided some rather nice comparisons to his 12700K, and you know what? The 13600 is, I think, going to be a very interesting processor. Now, of course, the two things that we do not know yet: A, official pricing. There are rumours that Intel will be increasing its prices, and B, how this stacks up against Zen. Now, we have seen some early benchmarks and stuff with Zen 4, but ultimately, we're not in a position yet where we can intelligently and accurately give, let's say, meaningful comparisons between the two. I don't honestly know, but Enthusiastic Citizen has essentially stated that we are looking at 173 watts, and that's a 1.31 volts with, quote, a lot of room for optimization. They believe that the optimized official version is going to be somewhere around 160. So we have an increase in frequency, L2 capacity, L3 speed, as well as the number of small cores. So IPC gains for Raptor Lake, and we've known this for quite some time, aren't exactly meaningful, but the IPC gains do exist with certain applications, specifically applications which really hit the L2 or the L3. With my own DDR4 tests with the 12900K, by the way, I scored around 27,000. And yeah, I mean, honestly, this is very impressive what Intel have achieved here. You will, however, notice that there is some hinky stuff when it comes to the single thread results. Now, I'm not quite honestly sure what's happening here. It could just simply be because we're looking at engineering samples or whatever, but ultimately, AMD may need to be a little careful with the lower core Zen 4 variants because, well, I suppose it depends. Like, if Zen 4 is way better in gaming, and honestly we just don't know at this stage, there's a lot of theories, then maybe Zen 4 would be better purely from a gaming perspective. But if you do other things, like some video editing, some 3D work, or whatever, Intel could be the better option. With that said, though, I'm going to let you all go. I'm still recovering from the Rona, which I've had since last week. I'm doing a lot better, but I'm still kind of, well, wrecked, to be technically accurate. I also want to mention real quick, guys, just, you know, if you happen to notice some random-ass comment on YouTube, you know, mentioning about winning a prize or whatever, we're aware of it. Unfortunately, we just can't stop them. You know, we keep either reporting it or deleting the comments or whatever. It just seems to be going around at the moment. Tons of YouTube channels have apparently gone through the same thing. It just sucks. Our recommendation, like, if it doesn't, like, click on the channel, and if it's not us, then, you know, report it. Another thing, and this is really obvious anyway, but, you know, we're not going to ask you for personal details, especially if we haven't, you know, even officially launched a competition or anything like that. You know, just be kind of cautious. I don't like to, you know, I don't like to be kind of a suspicious person, but unfortunately with the internet, that's just what it's got to be. Like, just DTA, don't trust anything unless you can be 100%. One last thing, the weather at the moment is really hot across multiple parts of, well, everywhere actually. In the UK, we're hitting over 100 Fahrenheit, which is really freaking hot. Obviously, a lot of our houses are built to retain heat and stuff, and you know what, just generally speaking, just take care of yourselves, make sure you're safe, just make sure you stay hydrated and all of that stuff, and yeah, love and take care of yourselves. Bye for now.